Greetings to all of you guys. Hassan Al-Badri with you. This video is going to be in English, and then there is 3 videos after that is going to be in Arabic, just to let you know. This video is called 9 Shocking Facts from the Quran. So let's hear what they're going to say and to tell us.
Ever since the dawn of mankind, we have sought to understand nature and our place in it. In this quest for the purpose of life, many people have turned to religion. Most religions are based on books claimed by their followers to be divinely inspired, without any proof. Islam is different because it is based upon reason and proof. There are clear signs that the Book of Islam, the Quran, is the Word of God, and we have many reasons to support this claim. There are scientific and historical facts found in the Quran which were unknown to the people at the time and have only been discovered recently by contemporary science.
Alright, so the premise of the video is telling us that there are some certain facts in the Quran that's what's never mentioned before the Quran. Alright, so the Quran was the first who come up with it. Let's see how true those facts are.
The Quran is in a unique style of language that cannot be replicated. This is known as the inimitability of the Quran. There are prophecies made in the Quran and by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which have come to pass. The following are some facts found in the Quran. Number 1. Origin of life. Water is essential for all living things. We all know that water is vital to life, but the Quran makes a very unusual claim. We made every living thing from water. Will they not believe? In this verse, water is pointed out as the origin of all life. All living things are made of cells. We now know that cells are mostly made up of water. For example, 80% of the cytoplasm, basic cell material, of a standard animal cell is described as water in biology textbooks. The fact that living things consist mostly of water was discovered only after the invention of the microscope. In the deserts of Arabia, the last thing someone would have guessed is that all life came from water. Number 2.
No, actually, to debunk and to refute this claim, you say nobody will come up in the desert. Actually, it's a very common thing to come up in the desert. You are thirsty. You're always surviving on water. So it's very, very common thing to think that water is the source of life. Let that alone, actually, 1,000 years before Islam, there was a professor, a philosopher called Thales. Okay, Thalès in Arabic. And this philosopher, he was actually a big school of philosophy, actually mentioning water as it's the cornerstone of life. Okay, Thales mentioned that 1,000 years before Islam. So the first fact is debunked, and it is wrong. Next fact.
Iron. Iron is not natural to the earth. It did not form on the earth but came down to earth from outer space. This may sound strange, but it's true. Scientists have found that billions of years ago, the earth was struck by meteorites. These meteorites were carrying iron from distant stars which had exploded. The Quran says the following on the origin of iron. We sent down iron with its great inherent strength and its many benefits for humankind. God uses the words sent down for iron. It is clear from the verse that iron is not an earthly material, but was sent down for the benefit of humanity. The fact that iron came down to earth from outer space is something which could not be known by the primitive science of the 7th century. Number 3. Sky's protection.
No, hold on. First of all, the verse is actually mentioning the hammer that went down from the sky. Isn't that what the verse means, or does it have multiple meanings? And plus, actually, iron can form within Earth. It doesn't have to be only purely from meteorites and asteroids, etc., etc. If you study the formation of a solar system, the formation of a solar system is from a star nebula. When the star nebula is a previous star that exploded. When stars explode, they can fuse iron with the explosion. They can generate that kind of heat, so they can fuse iron atoms, and then the nebula, the small nebula, becomes a star, and the dust and gases with the iron in it can form planets around the star. So then again, the second fact is debunked. Let's hear the third fact.
The sky plays a crucial role in protecting the Earth. The sky protects the Earth from the lethal rays of the sun. If the sky did not exist, then the sun's radiation would have killed off all life on Earth. It also acts like a blanket wrapped around Earth to protect it from the freezing cold of space.
Actually, this claim is bullshit. It's not the sky, it's the atmosphere and the magnetic poles of the two polar systems, the South Pole and the North Pole. How did you come up with the sky? I don't get it, really. It's the atmosphere and the magnetic poles. They create a magnetic field that can divert the harmful radiation from the sun. That's why we see the auroras if we go to the North Pole. The auroras, those are really charged particles that can actually protect us, the Earth protecting us with this magnetic pole. And the atmosphere, not sky. There is no one scientist says that sky is protecting us. What's the use of sky if there is no atmosphere, like the moon? What's the use of its sky if it doesn't have an atmosphere? Have you ever thought about that?
If this temperature was to reach Earth, then the planet would freeze over instantly. The sky also protects life on Earth by warming the surface through heat retention, greenhouse effect, and reducing temperature extremes between day and night. These are some of the many protective functions of the sky.
Of the atmosphere, not the sky. Atmosphere. Atmosphere. Again, I repeat, there is no such thing as a sky protecting us. Okay? The moon has also a sky. Why is it not protected? Because it doesn't have atmosphere. All right? You should really be really accurate with your definitions.
The Quran asks us to consider the sky.
Commercial.
The sky. The Quran asks us to consider the sky in the following verse. We made the sky a protective ceiling, and yet they are turning away from our signs. The Quran points to the sky's protection as a sign of God.
No, actually here you're exposing the Quran that whoever wrote the Quran was ignorant with physics and ignorant with space and astronomy, etc., etc. Actually, the sky is not a roof, all right? To consider it as a roof. That's why you were mentioning sky a lot. You were not mentioning atmosphere. Now I get it. By the way, I'm watching the video with you guys. I'm hearing the video for the first time. So I'm not prepared for anything. Because I know the usual facts and proofs that the dear Muslims provide, some of them. Actually, here, we don't have sky. We have space. Okay? Space. There is no sky. Alright? There is space. And what separates us from the space is actually our atmosphere, which gives us the greenhouse effect. Without the atmosphere, we would have just space. So you mean the atmosphere here. And the atmosphere is not mentioned in the Quran. Not in one bit. So this third actually, is debunked.
The protective properties of the sky were discovered by scientific research conducted in the 20th century.
Atmosphere.
Number 4, mountains. The Quran draws our attention to a very important characteristic of mountains.
And that is?
Did we not make the earth as a resting place and the mountains as stakes? The Quran indicates that mountains have deep roots by using the word stakes to describe them. In fact, mountains do have deep roots, and the word stakes is an accurate description for them. A book titled Earth by geophysicist Frank Press explains that mountains are like stakes and are buried deep under the surface of the earth. Mount Everest, the height of which is approximately 9 kilometers above ground, has a root deeper than 125 kilometers. The fact that mountains have a deep stake-like roots was not known until after the development of the theory of plate tectonics in the beginning of the 20th century. Number 5.
Hold on. Actually, not all mountains have roots. That's bullshit. And I double dare anybody who claims that all mountains have roots. Not all mountains have roots. Some of the mountains are volcanic mountains. The volcanic mountains, they have no roots. They are just a mountain above, really, a storage of hot magma. So there is no roots under it. Okay, and the hot magma goes out, all right? The lava and the magma goes out and forms the mountain. Such mountains don't have roots. And of course, you give an example with Everest. Yes, Everest actually around every year gets taller, gets higher, let's say, within, I think, like a couple centimeters, because of the plate tectonics are pushing each other to make it higher and higher. That's why there is earthquakes in that region in general, like Turkey, Iran, India, Pakistan, really. And by the way, your God mentioned that the mountains as a stakes. You know why it mentioned? Because your prophet, in a quote, in a hadith of the prophet, hadith Qudsi, said that Allah created earth on a whale. Yeah. Allah created earth, the 7 earths, by the way, there are 7 layers of earth, obviously. The 7 earths are on a whale, alright, and this whale is on water. And the whale started moving, shaking his back, and because of that shaking, the earth started really to shake a bit. So Allah wants to pin the earth steady fast on the whale's back. He put the mountains as nails, you know. So imagine the earth is like a canvas on the whale, and the whale is shaking, that canvas can fall. So Allah put the mountains as nails to steady fast this canvas. Very scientific, right?
Expansion of the universe. At the time when the science of astronomy was still primitive, the expansion of the universe was described in the Quran. And it is we who have built the universe with our creative power and keep expanding it. The fact that the universe is expanding was discovered in the last century. The physicist Stephen Hawking, in his book A Brief History of Time, writes, "The discovery that the universe is expanding was one of the great intellectual revolutions of the 20th century." The Quran mentioned the expansion of the universe even before the invention of the telescope. Number 6. Sun's orbit.
No. Wait. By the way, the expansion here is mistranslation of the verse, because the muwassi'un means the qudra, the potential power, not the expansion in the literal sense. Alright? And secondly, if your God is really that accurate with the astronomical and physics and cosmology stuff, why did he create Earth first? Can you give me a physics explanation? How can a solar system starts with the planet and then the star forms? Because all the solar systems, they form the star first and then the planets will form, not the other way around as is mentioned in your Quran.
In 1512, the astronomer Nicholas Copernicus put forward his theory that the sun is motionless at the center of the solar system and that the planets revolve around it. The belief that the sun is stationary was widespread amongst astronomers until the 20th century. It is now a well-established scientific fact that the sun is not stationary, but is moving in an orbit around the center of our Milky Way galaxy. The Quran mentions the orbit of the sun. It is He who created night and day, the sun and the moon, each floating in its orbit. The Quran would have been wrong according to astronomers just a couple of decades ago, but we now know that the Quranic account of the sun's motion is consistent with modern astronomy. Number 7.
No, actually here again the Quran exposes itself because you guys thought in the geocentric model. You thought that the earth is not moving, is stationary, and everything around it orbits it. Right? From the stars, from the sun, from the moon, from other planets, they are all orbiting Earth. And that's why it's really a wonder why Copernicus came up with the idea and you didn't come up with the idea. If you knew that fact. If you guys knew that fact, that the sun is orbiting and etc., why didn't you come up with it? Why, dear Muslims? Were you dumb? Were you stupid? I'm just wondering. You don't understand the words of your God?
The ocean. The Quran uses imagery to convey its deep meanings. Here it describes the state of the unbelievers as darkness out in a deep ocean, which is covered by waves, above which are waves, above which are clouds, layers of darkness, one upon the other. When one puts out his hand therein, he can hardly see it. Those God gives no light to, they have no light. It is commonly thought that waves only occur on the surface of the ocean. However, oceanographers have discovered that there are internal waves that take place below the surface of the ocean. These waves are invisible to the human eye and can only be detected by specialist equipment. The Quran mentions darkness in a deep ocean above which are waves, then clouds above that. This description is not only remarkable because it describes the internal waves in the ocean, but also because it describes darkness deep in the ocean. A human being can dive no more than 70 meters without breathing equipment. Light is present at that depth, but if we go down 1,000 meters, it is completely dark. 1,400 years ago, there were no submarines or specialist equipment to discover internal waves or the darkness deep inside the oceans. Number 8.
Hold on. First of all, it's something very observable. Everybody can see. Like when you're standing when you're in a ship and you look down, no matter what you see with the sunlight and everything, even with the moonlight, you're going to notice right away you don't see deeper than that. So it's a very common thing that you come up with it. Let alone that, there are no such thing as scientific waves under the waves. There is current. Okay, there is a stream, there is a current. It's not waves. There is difference between waves and a current. Like in Arabic, there is a big-ass difference between موجة وتيار تحت الأمواج. There is big-ass difference between a current and a wave, a stream and a wave. There is big-ass difference, and you're trying to make the stream as meaning the wave. I don't know how you jump to this conclusion, to this really, I don't know really. Anyway, continue. Fact number 7 is also debunked. Fact number 8.
In movement. There was a cruel, oppressive tribal leader named Abu Jahl, who lived during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. God revealed a verse of the Quran to warn him. No, indeed, if he does not stop, we will seize him by the forehead, his lying, sinful forehead. God does not call this person a liar, but calls his forehead, the front part of the brain, lying and sinful, and warns him to stop. This verse is significant for 2 reasons. The first is that the front part of our brain is responsible for voluntary movement. This is known as the frontal lobe. A book titled Essentials of Anatomy and Physiology, which includes the results of research on the functions of this area, states, The motivation and the foresight to plan and initiate movements occur in the anterior portion of the frontal lobes, the prefrontal area. The part of the brain that is responsible for movement is said to be seized if the man does not stop. Secondly, numerous studies have shown that this same region, frontal lobe, is responsible for the lying function of the brain. One such study at the University of Pennsylvania, in which volunteers were asked questions during a computerized interrogation, it was found that when the volunteers were lying, there was significantly increased activity in the prefrontal and premotor cortices frontal lobe region. The front part of the brain is responsible for movement and lying. The Quran links movement and lying to this area. These functions of the frontal lobe were discovered with medical imaging equipment which was developed in the 20th century. Number 9. Pain receptors.
No, hold on.
For a long time, it was thought that the sense of feeling and pain...
Hold on, brother. Hold on. Actually, the first part that's responsible for lying in the brain is actually on the sides of the brain. That's where the first signal starts. And then it goes to the frontal cortex. So the last decision determining, yes, it is the frontal. But the part that originates the thinking, the thought of lying, it gets triggered in the side of the brain, not the frontal cortex. So, no, not the frontal lobe either. So that is also debunked, the 8th fact. Let's see that here, the 9th fact.
Was dependent on the brain. However, it has been discovered that there are pain receptors present in the skin. Without these pain receptors, a person would not be able to feel pain. Consider the following verse on pain. We shall send those who reject our revelations to the hellfire. When their skins have been burned away, we shall replace them with new ones so that they may continue to feel the pain. God is almighty, all-wise. God tells the people who reject His message that when they are in hell and their skins are burnt off so they can't feel any pain, He will give them new skins so that they continue to feel the pain. The Quran makes it clear that pain is dependent upon the skin. The discovery of pain receptors in the skin is a fairly recent discovery for biology. These are just...
So, the 9th fact, which can easily be debunked, the Quran doesn't mention nerves. It doesn't mean any saying, and he's just mentioning really a regular phenomena that can be observed by everybody. Really, everybody who gets burned, their skin will go away, and the new skin will grow. I mean, it's really an obvious fact. And how did you jump to the conclusion that it means pain receptors? That I don't know. And that's that's also a logical fallacy. It's called the argument from exaggerated claims or exaggerated conclusions, you know. And that's what you're doing, what you're depicting here. So let that alone. So 9 facts, actually, all of them are debunked. And I'm wondering, the key question here, the key argument here, why were you Muslims quiet about those facts before science discovered it? Can any dear Muslim answer that, please? Why were you quiet all these centuries and waiting for science to confirm it? Then you go back to your Quran and say, yeah, it's actually mentioned in our book. Were you dumb? Were you ignorant? You don't understand the words of your God? Were you to that level of stupidity, really high level of low IQ? You don't understand the words of your God? Waiting for science to confirm the words of your God? Why don't you have the courage to say it first, before the science? Why didn't you have the courage? I wonder. So, that's the first video, actually, debunking 9 shocking facts from the Quran, from the channels called Merciful Servant. Merciful Servant, Merciful Servant, Merciful. Actually, many quotes around merciful, because I really wonder of any Muslim, if he faces somebody who insults his Prophet, will stay merciful. I really wonder. Because a dumb, stupid, caricatures from Denmark made 300 million angry Muslims go down to the street, burn 5 embassies, killing 50 innocent people, got nothing to do with the drawings. Okay? Just a simple, stupid, funny caricatures about the Prophet. Alright? Made 300 million. 300 million. Alright? Muslims go down angry. Burned 5 embassies. Killed 50 people, innocent people, got nothing to do with it. So I wonder, you call yourself merciful servant. I wonder if you're gonna be merciful if somebody will insult your prophet. Or will you also change from merciful to violent right away? Violent servant. And say, Fadaka ummi wa abi ya Rasulullah, really. I sacrifice my mother and dad for your sake, my prophet. And kill the person in front of you. I wonder, all those really phony claims, merciful. I'll call you merciful when I see you in person and I see you treat me mercifully. Okay, titles are not really, how to say, titles you don't get it automatically. Titles are earned. Alright? Anyway, that's the first video. The second video is going to be the debunking about the episodes Shek fil Kamin. And after that, another video about Mr. Sabri Damardash. And the last, of course, we're going to end it with Mr. Haytham Talat, which he also famous of inviting his brothers to report some accounts. Just like I got my account reported for impersonating Hassan al-Badri. And which these poor idiots don't realize that Hassan al-Badri is my real name. My picture is my real picture, and my ID carries the name Hassan al-Badri. Alright, so better luck next time, guys. Until then, cheers, love, and respects.